Hello, and thank you for watching Ask Ron, where Ron answers our Gold Club members' questions each and every week. My name is Nick, and I got Ron here ready to answer your questions. How you doing today, Ron?
Well, I got up just fine this morning.
Hey, good. If you have a question you'd like to ask Ron first, make sure you're a Gold Club member. You can get all the details on membership at ronsgoldclub.com. Of course, as a member, you not only get this exclusive access to Ron, where you can ask him questions directly, but there's also hundreds of index searchable training videos on just about every topic that Ron teaches, in addition to content from a number of outside experts that we have on various wealth building topics. You get access to Ron's complete forms and agreements library built over the years by Ron and his attorneys. You get access to all of Ron's scripts for making phone calls and handling every objection that a seller or buyer could give you. We also have a built-in affiliate program where you can refer other people interested in real estate investing and actually get paid a portion of their monthly dues. So you literally get paid to be a member. And actually, speaking of getting paid to be a member, you can also earn Gold Club points, which you probably heard Ron talk about a time or two here, that you can use towards almost any of our products and events to really discount any additional training that you might want. So again, that's ronsgoldclub.com to join and get all the other information.
You missed the most important feature of it.
What's that, Ron?
You get FSBO leads in your inbox every single day.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Fortune to you.
Yep, we scraped them. It was 1,700. I think we're up to about 2,000 different websites now that we scour across the internet and send them straight to your inbox every
in your two counties.
Yep.
All of this for a whopping $59 a month. Best bargain in real estate today.
All right, and got to mute my phone there. All right, so I forgot the most important part of this. I forgot to pull up our questions. So let me.
Well, while you're waiting, why don't we put in a plug for our Finding Motivated Sellers in any market coming up at the end of the month, 27 and 28 of August, guys. It's free, and I mean, like daily, we get communications from folks if they got any other ways to find sellers, and that's why we set aside 3 days to cover that with multiple guest speakers, all of which deal with a different type of way to find sellers. And I'm going to plug in a session on finding comps because real estate ABC is dead as far as we're concerned. They just ruined it. So I'm going to have the Wolves come on. They got at least 5 websites that you can use to find comps. And we're going to go on a couple of 3 of those while we're there to show you how to do it. So you definitely need to be able to find comps, but you can't rely on real estate ABC again. I've been plugging them for years. Now I got to unplug them. And we're also going to have multiple different people talking about what they do, but I think finding comps is an important part of that presentation. So just plug in down there, 26, 27, and 28, I think, and next.
Yep, 26th, 27th, possibly 28th. It's going to either be 2 or 3 days. Right now we've got 3 days.
That's a good point. And they can only take 1,000 people, guys, and we don't have much trouble getting 1,000 people on. So you better get registered if you want to. All right, what we got?
All right. First questions are from Yong in New York. His first question is, does the standard purchase and sale agreement also serve as a promissory note?
No. First, Yong, thank you for being on here almost every week. But no, purchase and sale agreement has nothing to do with a promissory note. That should be created by your attorney. And anytime you buy with owner financing, there will be a promissory note and a mortgage or a deed of trust created by that attorney as well. Promissory note is the promise to pay. Real estate contracts the promise to buy that property.
Okay, so but he doesn't, the purchase and sale agreement is enough for him to have filled out and then take to his attorney to get all the mortgage paperwork done.
Correct.
The note paperwork.
Signed by the seller, you don't need to worry about the rest of the paperwork.
Got it. All right, his second question is, why is it that closing in a wrap is more expensive than closing by taking over debt subject to? In both cases.
Because the attorney's got to create the note and mortgage. It's pretty much the only difference.
Okay. In both cases, you have to pay both seller and buyer's closing costs, right?
No. When I'm buying with when I'm buying with nothing down, I pay all the seller's closing costs. I mean, that's the only reasonable thing to do. When I'm giving seller money, I expect them to pay part of the closing costs. And in New York, I think you've got a pretty hefty transfer tax. And by the way, you're forced to close with an attorney, so I'm glad I'll protect you. But it's going to be case by case.
Okay. Next question is from Evgenii in Nevada. Evgenii says, can you give us an overview of the recommended equity structure? From what I've heard, it's simpler than I'd expect. LLC for operations like flips, LLC for holding property, and maybe an LLC to be trustee for all the land trusts.
I can do that, Jeannie, and will. But if that's top of your mind, you should get a hold of our office and get our Structuring Your Empire 2-day course. While we're giving it away here, since COVID started, we've been giving it away for $497. And you can get that by calling our office. Nick will put up the number. I take title to every single family house in its own land trust. One house, one trust. Okay, one egg, one basket. I have an LLC own those trusts. And then my wife and I own the LLC, which is also, you're going to have to determine how best to own that jointly so that it's not a singly owned LLC. And that's going to require a conversation with your attorney on how best to do that. So I have an LLC for my flippers, and then I have an LLC for my keepers that have tenant buyers in them. So I have 2 LLCs, but each with a different type of property in them. The keeper LLC gets long-term capital gains, gets all the benefits, gets depreciation and all that stuff that will make you wealthy, gets debt paid down. The flipper entity, you're not going to hold them long enough to even care about all that stuff. And I want you to keep those 2 separately if you can, and you can. If you're going to get into business, you're probably going to wind up with at least 2 LLCs. But regardless, land trust owns house, no matter which LLC owns the land trust.
All right. He has some concerns. He says many recommend not having much equity in a single LLC. He said, so would you split the holding LLC into many? No. Or is it unnecessary?
Here's the reason he recommend that, because they're assuming you're taking title to the property in the LLC. If the LLC is on public record as the owner, it is true every single house in it is at risk for the sins of any one. But that's not what I just said to do. Each house is owned by a land trust or a grantor revocable trust. Anything that happens to that one house cannot hurt everything in the LLC. The LLC has no liability because it is not on public record as the owner of the house.
Okay. Next question is from Edgar in Florida. Edgar asks, if I am trying to close a deal with a seller and the idea is to close this deal using a trust, what name should I put in the contract I am trying to get the seller to sign if I don't have a trust yet?
You don't have a trust the day you close, because until that deed transfers into that trust, there is no trust. So I put my LLC, any LLC, I don't care what LLC, as the buyer. I can close in any entity I want. I don't need the seller's permission. I don't even discuss it with the seller. I just tell the closing agent how to take title. Now, the simplest thing to do is whatever LLC you're going to use for the trustee, make that the LLC that's buying the house. And then all they have to do is add the words as trustee after it on the title, and mission accomplished.
Okay. Next question is from Steve in Indiana. Steve says, one of my no leads is asking way more than the home seems to be worth. Asking $749, closest most ideal comp is only $500. Another built 95 years after my lead would still only put it at about $650. Asking price determined / influenced by appraisal, but in the VA notes, seller said proximity to University of Notre Dame. It's really close, just a few blocks away, adds value. A, wouldn't the appraiser take that into consideration for their value? And B, wouldn't asking for the seller to pick an appraiser?
I don't know what the appraiser will take in as value, because I'm not the appraiser. I doubt it. I don't think proximity to Notre Dame is going to give them an extra penny. But what worries me here is that if the seller's asking $749, I'm going to guess the seller is closer to what it's worth than you are at 5 something, because that simply doesn't make sense. I doubt the seller is that stupid, but I'm betting that you're not using good comps, which is one thing we've got to get all of you to learn how to do. If you undervalue the comps, or if it's not really a good comparable property, then you're going to make a decision that they're asking too much. You need to look deeper into this than that, because I'll bet it's your number that's wrong. Sorry, I've been at this too long, and I'm just betting that you haven't been properly trained on pulling up comps yet. Now, look, worst case, you can always put the thing under contract at whatever price you and the seller agree upon, and then get it appraised, which is the smart thing to do in this case. Now, if the appraisal comes in low, you got to go back to the seller and say, look, we got to adjust. This thing ain't worth any more near what I agreed to pay for it. And so the seller then has 2 choices. Say, go jump in the lake, or work with you. Yes, you risk the cost of an appraisal, but that's a very small risk, $500 or $600 to verify that your value is there. So always, if you're in doubt, get some professional help to get you the right answers so you're not in doubt anymore. That's just diligence.
All right. Next question is from Jordan in Maryland. Jordan says, what would be the proper steps to wholesale a property with a land trust as a vehicle for assignment?
Okay, well, if you're going to wholesale a property, Jordan, you don't need to worry about a land trust because you're not taking title to it. You're going to use an LLC as the buyer, and then you're going to just assign your contract to whoever the heck wants to buy it from you, and it's not your concern how they want to take title to it. Trust has nothing to do with that. Trust is only if you're going to take title to the property.
Okay. Joseph from New York says, what lending institution do you recommend for buying houses using a solo 401k plan?
I don't ever recommend you use any lending institution to buy houses. If you haven't been trained by me, you better get to the Quick Start class, because for you to walk into a bank and apply for a loan, it means punishment, personal punishment from me with a big stick. We don't do that. We don't guarantee debt to do anything in Planet Ron. So quit thinking about lending institutions and start learning how to buy them with owner financing or taking over the debt subject to, or at least purchasing them. That's what we teach in the Quick Start School. Got one next week, in fact.
I think Joseph might be thinking that you need a lending institution to set up the 401k, the solo 401k.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know. Frankly, you just got to get on the phone and call a few of them and ask them if they can set you up with a solo 401k. Sorry, I misinterpreted that whole question, but hey, it was good stuff anyway. All right. Look him up on the Google.
Okay. Yeah, Google it, solo 401k. So there's no, I know like we recommend specific companies for self-directed IRAs. So I think he was just wondering if you have any recommendations for specific ones.
No, I don't, but if I did, my bank wouldn't be where you live anyway, so I'm not sure it matters.
Okay. All right. Javier from Georgia says, I've downloaded all or most of your scripts and they are great. However, I cannot find a script for the first phone call to the FSBO or house owner.
Oh. Nick, we've had that question so many times. Why don't you answer it, huh?
All right. This is the script. Hi, I'm calling about the house you have for sale. And then you ask the questions that are on the property information sheet.
Do you have a minute? That's it.
Do you have a minute? Yeah.
You go right to the questions that's on the property information sheet, starting with the name and the phone number, and what do you think it will appraise for, and what are you asking, and what do you owe, and the payment, and so forth. You can write them down the line. That's all there is to it.
That's it. All right. Next question is from Judy in Kentucky. There are 3 single-family properties and 1 duplex on the same street offered for sale by the same owner. Can I write only 1 purchase agreement and list all 4 properties on the agreement?
Well, you can, but you didn't tell me how they're getting financed. So let's assuming the owner is financing them. If that's the case, I would not do that. I would do each property on a separate agreement with its own owner financing and make sure that they're not tied together. The last thing you want to put yourself in a position is that all 4 of them are in one mortgage and note, and you can't sell one without seller's permission. They all need to be separated. That's just 4 different closings. Now, you didn't tell me, is the duplex behind the house or whatever. If that's the case, if it's all on one lot, then you're going to have to buy that whole thing in one piece. But if you're buying 4 properties, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. Better make sure that cash flow is going to work now and that you're getting a deal on them. And I'm assuming you're getting owner financing, but if you're not, you better get a really, really good price on them if you got to go raise the money with a private lender. But I put them on 4 different ones.
Okay, our next question is from Ree in Texas. And I think you already answered this before we even started. It says, looks like realestateabc.com does not run comps for addresses anymore.
That's correct.
And you're going to cover how to handle that.
What's the question?
Well, he says, is anyone else experiencing the same issue?
Yes.
Where do we get comps?
And that, as I said, we're going to do a session on that during the thing at the end of the month. And Lynette's going to come in and give us some good sites. Here's a couple right now I'll give you. One of them is Ownerly, OWNERLY.com. I was on that yesterday myself. And it's okay, but what it does though is give you a quick valuation that looks a lot better and compares it to 2 different types of valuations, which is a lot simpler and more trustworthy than Zillow. I don't trust it till I see the actual comps. And then there's always Zillow, of course. A little tough for me to get to the comps on Zillow, but the biggest one and most important one is Dreams. If you've got the Dream system, comps are right there. Frankly, that's as good as anything I've ever seen right there. The comps are right there for you. And if you don't have the Dream system, it's only $297 a month to upgrade on your $59 Gold Club plan, and you get tell them what all they get with Dreams. I mean, it's a huge bargain.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just comps. It just has basically everything you need in one spot to manage your deals, including all the marketing to attract sellers and buyers, website for buying and selling, landing pages, field agent portal to where you can have other people going out finding houses for you. It's got a marketing engine that will syndicate your properties out to other sites. It's got marketing automation so that when a seller, is interested in selling a house, it's got a whole follow-up series that happens automatically that you can completely customize with emails and text messages and phone calls and ties our VAs into it. It's all in one place.
In fact, our VAs will run it for you. They'll help you set it up. It's not that complicated, and then they'll manage it for you. You just tell them what you want them to do. Where are you going to get a better system than that, for crying out loud? Comps are already built in, and so is property analysis. And of course, that's where all your property information sheets go and stay. You can see what the progress is on them right there on your desktop, and you can set it and forget it, so you don't have to remember anything. That's the part I like about it.
Yeah.
Only way to work for me. In other words, I want to follow up on a seller in a month. You don't need to worry about it. It does it for you once you set it.
Yeah, it's all your management systems in one. You got a customer management system, basically your sellers and your buyers. It's got a project management system for all the tasks between you and any team members, if you have any, your VA. And then it's also a content management system for your websites and such.
Yes, and it includes the $59 for the Gold Club.
Yeah. Yep, Gold Club is included in that, so you won't have 2 charges there.
Now there is a $500 setup fee if you don't have a VA or if you don't already have mentoring. We waive the setup fee with mentoring if you want to call in and check on that. But it is a one-time fee, and it's the same fee you'd pay to get a VA. And once you get it that, you can get a VA even at the $59 level. But the $297 level is like having an employee for free. All right, Nick?
All right. Next question is from Latasha in Ohio. Latasha says, when providing earnest money to a seller, should it be in the form of a check or can it actually be cash?
Latasha, it doesn't matter as long as the seller signs the very last line on my purchase and sale agreement that acknowledges they got it. Okay? That's a receipt that they've signed that they've received it. Because I'll tell you, if you have a $10 deposit on there and you can't prove you gave it to them, you don't have a contract. They can get out of it anytime they want.
All right. James has 2 questions from North Carolina. He says, first question, I am in the process of forming an LLC and all the websites have all these different levels and upgrades they offer. I want to know, other than the EIN and operating statement, what else do you need that is important so I can avoid overpaying?
Well, you don't need to use any of those websites. You can go right on your state's website and say, I want to form a corporation. Here comes a form. You fill in the form. You will need to ask for an EIN number. You will need a name of the corporation. And I don't know if North Carolina asked, well, you need an officer, which is probably you. I don't know if they ask who the owners are or not. But anyway, whatever they ask, you got to fill in. You got to pay a state fee, which isn't much, 150, 200 or whatever it is in North Carolina. And they'll either give you the EIN number right there, or they'll give it to you a few days later. Either way, that's all you got to do to form a corporation. Now, you need an operating agreement, but crap, that's not going to be hard for you to find because they're pretty much all the same unless you got a weird LLC. I don't think we have one on the Gold Club, a standard operating agreement, do you? Do we?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different from state to state. I know here in Florida, they just, like when you fill out the form, it creates your operating agreement for you.
Okay.
You know, on your state website. So
it might do that in North Carolina as well.
It might, yeah.
It ain't gonna be hard to find one of those. You can go to legalzoom.com and find one of those.
Yeah, that's where he's looking right now, LegalZoom, and I think he was trying to use their services to get an LLC, and that's where he was getting all the upsells.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but they're going to ask you for the upsells.
Sure.
You know, they want to send you a book and all that stuff. You don't need all that stuff. Just get the corporation formed and get the EIN number. You'll need the EIN number to open a bank account and maybe an operating agreement.
All right, James's second question is, I know Ron says in the videos that he will pay the closing costs if the seller isn't getting any money in the deal. What if I do not have the funds to pay the closing costs on my first couple of deals?
Well, you can always lease purchase it where there are no closing costs, or you can just get the money from someone or your Visa card or wherever if the equity in the house is worthy enough of you coming up with a closing cost money. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So, so you tell me if somebody gives you a $300,000 house and they only owe $225,000. If I were you, I'd come up with a closing cost. I don't care where you got to get it. I don't care how much it is in the state you live in, because you need to own that house. If you own it, you're in total control of it. You know, you can do whatever you want. You don't need the seller's permission to do anything. And I want to own them as fast as I can. So it doesn't say what state he's in, does it?
Yeah, he is in North Carolina.
Okay, they're not bad in North Carolina. It's not that much money to come up with a closing cost. Ask somebody you know that might have a little bit of money. I need $3,000 for closing costs on this property. If you will loan it to me, I'll give you back $3,500 when I put a tenant buyer in the house. That's an outrageous rate of return, since that shouldn't take you more than a month or two for them. So you got to get in the habit of asking and not be afraid to talk to people about money. What a favor you did for them. You get them $500 for doing nothing except writing a check and waiting for a larger check. Don't make them a partner just to put up closing costs. You don't need to give away half the deal for a little bit of money like that. So just ask yourself, who can I know? Who do I know that I think has got a little bit of money? I'll tell you what you'll find out. The people that you know that don't think have money are probably the people with money. Okay? The people you know that you think have money are probably the people that are broke. So don't try to prejudge who's got money and who doesn't. Besides, it's such a small amount of money. You should not have any trouble finding it if you make it worth their while.
All right, he said another question, when buying with owner financing, you want to buy with the cheapest closing costs, right? Then with selling, you want to sell with whatever allows you to repossess the fastest.
You don't get to decide what the closing costs are. They are what they are. Okay. Your only decision that you can make is, do you want to buy title insurance? And if you're buying with owner financing, the answer is no. I get a title search, which you better get, but I don't buy title insurance. Kind of a waste of money to me. And what am I insuring? Little or nothing. When I'm selling, I always want to put, if not all, most of the closing costs on the buyer, regardless of I'm selling with lease option or selling with, well, I don't hardly do selling with owner financing anymore, but if I did, the buyer would pay the closing costs.
Okay. Fernando in Connecticut says, I need to monetize my investment. I bought a house with a wrap mortgage. The ARV is $400,000. Purchase price is $265,000. I took over a $140K loan with 12 years left on the mortgage. The seller took a $65K second mortgage. I had to pay $60K to bring the loan current.
Ooh.
Okay. The debt on the property between both loans is 190 and has over 200K worth of equity. I have a tenant buyer that is in it for 8 months. I installed new hardwood floors and painted. He installed a new roof, new kitchen, bathroom.
Nice.
The second loan is coming due in a few months. I was looking at my options. 1, get a private lender to finance 1 to 2 years before a tenant buys property. Or 2, go back to the seller and get more time. I prefer not to do this. 3, refinance with a traditional mortgage that is not recommended in Ron's world. Or 4, work with the tenant buyer to get them qualified sooner. Are there other options?
Strike 3 off your list, and the other 3 are very good, good options. First thing I'd do is go see what the tenant is like and see if they want to buy it and try to get them qualified right away. So in fact, offer to pay their closing costs for them, give them an incentive. Because if they're ever going to qualify, they'll probably qualify now. And that is the fastest, easiest way out. Nobody's in a hurry. You start by getting a little shorty application, which is in my manual, and you send it to screenthetenant.com, and he'll come back and give you a report on them. He'll tell you whether they can qualify or not. Now, okay, look, you might want to start by asking them the credit score, because if it's 520, they're not going to qualify now or ever, most likely. So if they are under the lease, you don't have no choice but to wait it out. Now, I'd be very, very reluctant to go get a private loan. I didn't get, though, does he own the house now, or does he have it under contract and he needs this 60-some thousand to close?
He said he bought it with a wrap mortgage.
He bought it.
He owns it.
He bought it.
Yeah.
And so why does he need money now other than a short-term balloon?
I think his the second mortgage is coming
due.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't worry about that, because a month or 2 before it comes due, just go get the second mortgage holder to extend it and tell them where you're at, and tell them, got a tenant in here, I can't do anything until they get out, and I'm gonna list it with a realtor and sell it. Hell, they'll wait. What choices did they have? Foreclose? Foreclose on who? Your land trust? How long will that take? So they're gonna give you an extension.
Is it the seller took the second mortgage, not
Okay.
him?
Well,
So does that
I
matter?
don't want the house, or you wouldn't have bought it to begin with.
Okay.
So you only need to do that if you're not out within that 6 months or however many months it was. I wouldn't worry about it, to tell you the truth, because honestly, you think about it, even if they file foreclosure on you, you got months and months and months before they can take the house back.
All right.
Meantime, you can pay them off. They can't stop you from paying them off. This buyer or the next buyer.
All right. Got a few more questions here. Steve from Florida.
Let me make
says,
one statement on this, Nick.
Go ahead.
If it truly does have $200,000 worth of equity in it, after you come up with that 60 grand you want, there might be an exception I could make for you to go to the bank and borrow just what you need, knowing you're going to get it ready and then cash out of it and list it with a realtor. And you are going to list it with a realtor. You're not a realtor. Let the professional sell the house for you, and then there'll be plenty of money left over and you'll get that debt paid off. I could live with that, I guess. I mean, I'd have to take a pill or something, but short-term thing like that, I could live with it.
All right. Steve from Florida says, when quoting owner financing on a free and clear property, is taxes and insurance the responsibility of us, the buyers,
yes,
or the sellers?
Yeah, it's always yours. When you take title, everything's your responsibility. Now, whether you're going to pay the seller 1/12 of that is between you and the seller, but it is your responsibility. In fact, the day you close, you're going to need an insurance policy for the next year, because you're going to pay 1/12 for taxes and insurance, but the insurance now has got to be paid up front. So you got to pay the first one up front, and then on the second year, that 1/12 will take care of the second year.
Right. And you probably have to pay the whatever's left over in this year for taxes, the prorated amount for taxes up front too, right?
Yeah, the seller will give you a credit, but then when the tax bill comes in, you're responsible for the whole thing.
Okay. All right. Then he continues, I need to make sure it is the responsibility is mine, the buyer. Then I need to figure as part of the payment for the prospective buyer, correct? So when he sends it to his next buyer, it needs to be part of their payment.
The taxes and insurance, absolutely, assuming you're selling it with owner financing. If you are, you're going to charge the same amount of taxes and insurance that you're paying. If you're lease purchasing it, taxes and insurance are your problem, but you're collecting rent to take care of all of that and more, hopefully. But ye who owns house pays taxes and insurance on house until ye don't own that house anymore.
And you also get the tax benefit of paying the taxes.
You do. You get to write all that off. You get depreciation. You get debt pay down. You get appreciation. You get all of that as long as you own the house. And don't sell that debt pay down short, folks. I mean, time flies, doesn't it? If you don't think so, just look back 5 years. You own a house for 5 years, that debt's going to go boom. It's going to shock you how far that debt's going to go down in 5 years. And that's just kind of a bonus, just because you held on. If you got monthly cash flow the whole time as well, why not? I call them golden geese. What's the big rush to get out of them? I don't want to get out of them. I want to stay in them. Let the goose keep laying golden eggs.
All right. Next one is Steve in Minnesota. Who makes the tax payments when we take over a free and clear house? We would be taking over the house with owner financing.
Well,
Same
you just
question.
answered that. Whoever owns the house pays the taxes. But again, you get a credit for the prorated share when you close.
All right. Next question is from Ellis in Pennsylvania. It says, on a subject to deal, does it make sense to do a 90-10 split to keep the seller in the deal?
No, I don't know why. And that's because you just opened your mouth and offered it. It's not a subject to deal. You should be able to easily do it without that. I don't want the seller in my business. I'd rather they go on about their way and we work out a deal right now. Now, if the seller wants some money, just give them a second note on it and pay them when you get paid. And that's very common.
Okay. Final question for today is from Van in Virginia. Says the seller does not like the fact that they will still be responsible for the mortgage during the lease phase. How do you address that concern?
You cannot, look, there's no way you're going to get out of that. If the seller is not willing to leave the loan in their own name, you're not going to buy the house. And that kills a lot of deals. So do the best you can to convince him you're going to make the payments. And if that doesn't work, keep following up with them every month, hopefully on dreams. When they get tired of making those payments, they'll probably pay it. Think about it. The only way out for them is to list it with a realtor and sell it for all cash. And there might be a lot of reasons why they're not going to make that happen. So look, here's what you got to understand. When somebody gives you an objection and you can't overcome it, that's a temporary delay. When somebody says no, it means keep bugging me till I say yes. When the time is right and they're tired of making that payment, they're going to come to the conclusion most likely that they're willing to take that risk that you're going to make it. Now look, I wouldn't buy it subject to anyway. I'd buy it on a wraparound mortgage, because then you can tell them, look, if I don't pay, you can take it back and you're back where you started. And if that bothers you, I'll put a deed in escrow with the attorney that if I'm 30 days late, he will just deed it back to you. That goes a long ways to satisfy their apprehensions. So do whatever you can to convince them that you're going to pay. Sometimes when I'm buying them with nothing down, I'll even offer to go ahead and make the first 2 payments up front, just so they can see that I got skin in the game. Okay. All right. Is that it, Nick?
Yep, that's all our questions.
Okay. Guys, I'm not going to try to tell you how to vote in November, but this much I read in an article yesterday, and this is so relevant to us as real estate investors. This article says that if Biden gets elected, he is going to do away with 1031 exchanges. He's also going to do away with the interest deduction on investment properties. I think about that. What do you think that's going to do with the real estate market? It will absolutely destroy it. I think back to 1986 when Reagan passed the new tax law, where he did away with the interest deductions on properties. Literally the whole market crashed, and they came up with the RTC, the Resolution Trust Corporation. Took years to get out of that mistake. And I got to admit, that was a Republican that made that mistake. Okay, so careful who you vote for and explore it deeply and apply it to your own needs. All right, political statement over. I'll see you next week, same time, same channel. I'm getting out of here. We're going camping for the weekend. So you won't be in touch with me for the next 3 days, most likely.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
Bye-bye, folks.